for the question, but allow me to just start where Dismas left off. There is no country in the world that is permanently campaigning and permanently on the pursuit of political power. It cannot work. And that leads me to the current arrangement that Jubilee is looking at. Listen, Jubilee is looking for working partners. It is very clear that if this government can deliver, then you need the political support of the various players in the field. Let me explain what I mean. If you look at the 2013-2017 term, you remember there was a thing called tear gas Mondays, and you remember how often business was disrupted in this country because of political tensions, and every other time there was a political movement trying to literally stop the government. So it is imperative, and I think President Uhuru Kenyatta has learned from his experience in 2013 and 2017 and learned that it is better to build bridges than to burn them. Indeed, his statements have watered down since. You remember his statements at a church just before the elections and what he's saying now. And these are things that are good for the country. But we as a country keep thinking that opposition is the ability to say no to everything the government does. That's not really what it's about. And political cooperation is nothing new. And I want to give you an example of the CDU and the CSU in Germany, which are called sister parties. Why? Because the CDU intentionally does not participate in the CSU elections in Bavaria. And therefore, they keep forming a coalition or a working arrangement every time, and it is not official, Ben. It is not written anywhere down on paper. Let me just finish, Ben. The last part. Perhaps one of the ways of ensuring that political parties survive is to realize that most of them will remain small because of the tribal nature of our politics, and therefore we need to form political party unions to continue multi-party democracy in this country.
Mark, are you saying that in countries where there's opposition, the governments do not work, do not deliver on the promises they made to the people? And in this country, in fact, the Kenyan constitution envisages a majority and a minority. And the work of the minority is basically to put checks and balances on the majority side, which forms government, to make government even more effective, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, I agree with you. But let's remember, checks and balances is not total and absolute dispute about everything that the government is doing. If the government is doing the right thing, then even opposition parties across the globe support the government. In the United States, which has a majority and minority system like ours, there are very, very, very many bipartisan bills, bipartisan arrangements that have happened in the United States. We do not say that multi-party democracy is dead in the United States when the Democrats and the Republicans sit down to work on a bill together. So when these parties come together to support the president's Big Four agenda, it does not mean that multi-party is dead.
Okay. Chero, we've talked about the Jubilee side, the Jubilee Asili. Now we're talking about the possible death of NASA, which in effect, we're talking about the death of a minority side that can keep checks and balances on the government. What do you think is ideal for this country?
Look, Ben, I don't think that NASA is dead. NASA won't die. As I started off by saying, alliances exist for a reason. And I would even be tempted to agree with Mark if we suspended realpolitik in Kenya for a second. But the reality of the situation here is that alliances exist for a reason. And most of these reasons have nothing to do with Wanjiku, but just the consolidation of power. In fact, I want to ask, is Kalonzo alive this morning? Because I think I distinctly recall him saying he would rather die than actually join Jubilee. But there you have it. Isaac Ruto, brilliant gentleman that he is, has been in the political doldrums long enough, and it's time to bring CCM back into the fold. So even when we talk about NASA, we look and see ODM, the primary, the strongest member of NASA, shook hands with Jubilee, but ODM has not officially left NASA, and I do not think that ODM is going to leave NASA anytime soon. If anything, I think that ODM is hedging its bets, because although the handshake seems to drive a permanent wedge between Ruto and Uhuru, bets are still not completely clear, because there's still the central Kenya issue. And who who knows what will eventually happen? We are still a couple of years away from elections, and anything can happen. Ruto could come back to the fold. Anything could happen. I mean, so at the end of the day, these alliances exist as vehicles to solidify or entrench certain political agendas. Look at Ford Kenya and the wrangles happening there, and it's still a member of NASA, but who knows? Maybe Ford Kenya is being deliberately sabotaged in preparation for a potential red herring candidate come 2022. Who knows what's going to happen with ANC? Mudavadi is very clear in his distaste for what it is that Kalonzo has done, but who is to say that ANC itself will not shake hands and join the Jubilee alliance? So these alliances exist. And even to say, I do believe in bipartisan collaboration, but you see it the other way around as well. The late McCain did not vote to end Obamacare. So even he stood up against his ruling party. So when you have bipartisan arrangements, when you have houses of parliament that are interested in the development of people, then they work in that direction.
Okay.
But because we do not have that in Kenya, these alliances will simply be formations and reformations to entrench the elite interests.
Dismas, what is your take? Is NASA dead from where you sit? Because as it stands, it's only Ford Kenya and the ANC.
Well, in theory, NASA is alive and kicking, but in practice, NASA is long dead because the four-party leaders are pulling in two different directions. But going back to the beginning, Mark Bichacha has indicated that the president is building bridges. One wonders, do you want to build bridges with political personalities while burning bridges with political parties? Which serves Kenyan interests? We've indicated here times above number that political parties in Kenya, we are supposed to encourage them to form, to morph, to become very solid organizations, that it doesn't matter who is at the top, that a political party can take a decision so that we can start having these bipartisan cooperation. But it's very clear that today, President Kenyatta, while he's building bridges, is building bridges with individuals, with personalities. That's why his deputy leader seems a bit unhappy, that he doesn't like some of the personalities who are being invited to the sitting room. So we should actually encourage our political parties, if they're going to build bridges, these bridges must be anchored on ideas and philosophies that serve Wakesho's interest, not ideas and philosophies that serve the selfish interest of those personalities. During the news conference which took place at the Jubilee headquarters, when Kalonzo was speaking and Isaac Ruto, and they were being taken to task by journalists, a few of the bright journalists, they were lost for words. They said that we were coming together so that, you know, we can unify Kenya, that we need Kenya united. There is no evidence to suggest that from 1963 that Kenya has been a disunited nation. So when they tell us that we want to unite Kenya, for what purpose? Do they want to unite Kenya so that they can keep on, cheating Mura? Or when they unite, now our GDP is going to grow to the next level? We must run away from these psychopathy. And then secondly, we keep on appealing to President Kenyatta and his brother to ensure that they do not preside over the death of multi-party politics in Kenya. We've been introduced to a new word called de jure and de facto, but we really must encourage them not to be the two people to see the death of these political parties. You may have recalled that a few days ago there was a team established in Kajiado called the Sky Team, which has got Oparanya and Eugene among the key members. They've been given a blanket check and limited resources to campaign with or without COVID. They've been meeting people in the middle of the night, crafting what they refer to as the Mlembe Unity. But when the other friend called Wetangula wants to go back to the village and say it with folks, they are being entertained with tear gas. You saw what happened yesterday. So the president must be very clear and tell us, are these rules around COVID being deployed in a manner to benefit people who are his friends, and a disadvantage people are considered to be his political competition? Because we cannot just sit back and allow President Kenyatta to roll back the gains in this constitution.
Important point, thank you. Kipchumba, very quickly, what do you think? Is NASA dead?
NASA died on the footsteps of Arambe. Was it the 8th or the 9th of March during the handshake? That is when politically NASA died. And then again, Ben, we must come back to the canons of politics. Coalitions are brought together not to go for a funeral or a wedding. They are brought together to achieve power. And when you cannot achieve power, and I have said it in this panel, that the moment NASA could not achieve power and it could not achieve any other thing, it ceased being a political coalition, so-called. It just remained some documents deposited at the office of the Registrar of Political Parties, because the intention of bringing politicians together is to seize power. Even whatever is happening currently, we see people being positioned in front of Jubilee House and being given speeches to read. There is nothing. We are not uniting the people. Politicians are coming together to seize power. The other thing, my advice to Kalonzo Musyoka will be this. I know he's my senior by age, but I will refer him to read some Shakespearean books a little bit, because there is somewhere Shakespeare says that do not swear by the moon, because it keeps on changing so constantly. And the other thing is this, Ben, I think my final comment on this NASA thing and the Jubilee and these uniting Kenyans. Whatever is happening is, if you are to ask yourself, when we say we are uniting Kenyans through political parties, what are the key performance indicators that the unity will have worked? What are we getting from the 3 years NASA, ODM and Jubilee have been having that cooperation? Whatever is happening, people are defecting to Jubilee, but where they are having rosy names, they are saying a cooperation, it's still defection. When lawyers come to Jubilee, they are saying they are coming under lawyer unity. When ODM came, it came under an animal known as shared prosperity. All that is what Shakespeare calls it, a rose by any other name will still smell the same. Even if you call it in Kikamba, I call it